So Principal Cleaning, we are a London-based cleaning company. We were founded in 1989. Um, and it is literally what it says on the tin. So we provide cleaning services to, um, I would say, a pretty sort of prestigious lot of clients. In particular, I think if you consider some of the buildings that we're cleaning in, we've got some really fancy skyscrapers across London. If you think of the famous buildings in London, we probably clean them. So that's essentially what we do. I think the bulk of our revenue is daily office cleaning, window cleaning, and we also do sort of specialist stuff as well, ad hoc works here and there. So my role is I am essentially the financial controller. I head up a team of 10 in the finance team. So naturally, there's a lot of overseeing the transactional side of things, but in terms of specific stuff I do, it's really taking lead on the budgeting, the forecasting, the reporting, and in particular this project and any sort of system improvement in general. So yeah, we had already sort of decided to move on to Sage Intacct, but I very quickly realized why. And I think the sort of key benefits, I tend to summarize them into 3 different bullet points. The first one being it's a cloud-based system. So we were previously on Sage 200, and that would really restrict us in terms of who can use the system. Particularly with our business, we operate in 500 different sites. We've got maybe 100 different managers who look after those various sites. So we couldn't realistically install Sage 200 on everyone's machines and give everyone licenses. Whereas with Intacct, I think we can really unlock that feature with employee licenses. And that in turn will really unlock for future business partnering opportunities. So that's the first point, the cloud-based system. I think the second reason why we moved on to Sage Intacct is the reporting. From what I've seen, and we've been on the system for 4 months, of course there was a process of testing and everything. There is a lot more drillability in the reports. There is a lot of customizability, and that's something which we're really enjoying at the moment. And then I think the third reason we moved on to the system, and this is quite technical, but the dimension balances is something, that's something which we're really interested in. Because we operate 500 different sites, we were finding on our previous system that we would have to create 50 nominal codes per site. So if you do the maths, that's 25,000 different lines we had on our chart of accounts. Whereas now with the dimensions, it's literally just the 50 nominal codes that we have on our chart of accounts, and then you attach the dimension, i.e. the customer. So that significantly reduced sort of our trial balance. Our reports are a lot quicker. We don't have to sift through thousands of pages of Excel sheets. So that's a big plus. So some of the wider benefits the organisation has seen since we've moved on to Intacct, I think really it boils down to the reporting aspect. So previously, a lot of managers didn't have visibility of what we call the blues, is essentially our profitability on each site. Whereas now, because of the likes of the system being cloud-based and with the employee licenses, they can essentially now log in and look at their accounts. And I think through that, there's a lot of benefit to be had. Previously, we were reliant on a very select group to sort of go through the operational side of those numbers, whereas now there's a lot more business partnering that can be done. There's a lot more expertise we can take out of various staff members. And I think we're still to reap those benefits, I think, but it's very evident the direction we're going in. Sage Intacct has changed the work the finance team is doing from a business partnering element. I think because of the enhanced reporting features, the amount of employees that we're able to now show the accounts to means naturally there are more questions. But this is something that we had considered through the planning stage with the help of ITES. So we actually brought in a new recruit specifically for, well, part of that role would have been for the business partnering. So, we were ready. We planned for this. But I think there's, as I've said, there's a lot of benefit to be had from this. So my personal favorite reporting feature within Intacct has to be the custom reports. So specifically, one of the reports that we produce for our 500 sites is where we drill into the revenue and the costs for each site. Now, this was previously produced on Excel using SQL, something I wasn't familiar with, to be honest, when I joined the company. But what I found was the Excel sheet was quite clunky. We couldn't really do much with it. It was just sort of exporting a trial balance, and then it would sort of feed numbers through. So we were able to transfer that report across to Intacct. So now that report is literally produced within the system, and that opens up a lot of opportunities in that, as for example, a particular revenue or cost line, you can literally drill into it and then it will produce a general ledger report for you with all of the information behind that. And that's something our managers operationally have been really asking for a long time. And again, we were having to provide it through Excel sheets. So I think it's really just automated a lot of the work that we've already been doing and streamlined it. Yeah, I mean, so in terms of saving time, I think you have an idea that it is saving time. For example, when we're running our reports on Excel, we have to sort of press a refresh button, and it can take sort of several minutes for it to load up. Whereas on Intacct, it's almost instant. Any adjustments that we're making as we're working through the accounts, we would then have to go through that same process, refreshing our data. Whereas on Intacct, it's very much live. So you would rerun the report, and within a second or two, you'd have your report back up with your, updated figures. So although we haven't done sort of an analysis on how much time it saved, so at some point we will. But I think it is clear even at this early stage, that it is saving us a lot of time. And I think, part of my role, figuring out efficiencies is, fundamental to this, particularly as we are a growing company. Our turnover just a couple of years ago, we've almost doubled our turnover, in all honesty. And I think with that, as amazing as that is, it does present quite a lot of challenges as a financial controller, because you're now looking at more sales invoices to raise, more purchase invoices to post, more reporting requirements. Everyone's got a want, and it's up to us to sort of fulfill that. And through Intacct, I think it allows us to sort of say yes to a lot more of those requests. So the reporting within Sage Intacct, since we moved on to it, I would say it has sort of changed decision making. I think the key reason here is going back to efficiencies. So we're now able to produce our accounts quicker. I want to say a lot quicker, but we've only really been on the system for a few months. We've produced 2 months of accounts now, and they have been quicker, and I foresee that they will be even more quicker going forward. So I think with any sort of decision making, firstly, it's crucial that you're getting your information, sooner rather than later. But also, because of the drillability in the accounts, something which we didn't have before, there's a lot more information to be had. And I think with the right training to the right people, I think we can make more informed decisions. So our month-end process has changed. So in terms of the sales and purchase ledger deadline, so when we cut off, that remains the same. And we're quite lean as a company in that we usually cut off around the 12th of the month. I know in other places it's a lot sooner, but there are reasons behind that. So that remains the same. However, we're now, because of Sage Intacct, we're able to process the next set of journals, so the sort of the general ledger stuff, a lot quicker. For example, the wage journals, which are coming through our CRM system, I'm sure we'll go on to discuss this a bit more, but we can now automate a lot of the postings with Sage Intacct. This may have been a feature which, it may have been in the previous system, but it's definitely been unlocked, so to speak, on Sage Intacct. So a lot of our journals are now being automated, whereas previously they were run on a CSV file and we would then have to import them in. So that's just meant that process has become a lot quicker, and in turn we're finding that we're going to push our deadline to close our month-end accounts that bit more sooner, which ties back into your previous question about decision making. I think the aim is to get out the accounts as quickly as possible, but also we have to ensure they're accurate, and I think that's where Intacct will help us. So in terms of purchase ledger, sales ledger, we would cut off around the 12th. And then the general ledger, we would tend to close off the accounts. To be honest, again, this is quite lenient, but towards the end of the month, whereas now we're sort of aiming towards the first day of the final week. So we've had 2 months of results, and we've had really positive feedback from our senior managers thus far. Firstly, they can see that they're no longer receiving a really clunky Excel spreadsheet. They're receiving a nice structured PDF. They've also received employee licenses, which allows them to log in and drill into their accounts. So any questions that they had on, what's behind this cost line, rather than coming to us directly, which, they still can do if they want. But with the employee license, they can now go in and just check it themselves, which is amazing for us in our team. But also, I think it empowers them also to proactively check through certain things. So since we've moved from Sage 200 to Sage Intacct, we've seen massive improvements in our integration with our CRM system called Templar. So previously, our sales invoices, they were raised and posted quite manually, in that it would send across a CSV file, and we would have to import that into Sage 200. Also, I mentioned we've got approximately 500 clients and probably 1,000 sites, if you consider sort of various sites across each client. Previously, we would have to create them manually. So all of those customer records were being created on a manual basis. Whereas now, with the integration, we're literally able to automate the whole process. So any new client that is created, it will automatically sync with Sage Intacct. Another feature which I absolutely love, which helps us dramatically in our reporting, is that we are able to now, through the use of custom fields on Sage Intacct, we're able to export across very specific business analysis fields. And this is entirely up to us what we choose to push through. But in our case, we're pushing through employee names, parent groups, organization types, and specifically on the employees, what we're now able to do is on our reporting, where we've got an operations director that maybe looks after a cluster of customers, or specific reporting managers assigned to those customers, all of that process is automated now. So it just syncs seamlessly with Sage Intacct, whereas previously we were literally having to manually key in every operational director and manager for each site. So that's taken a huge sort of weight on our processing team in terms of maintaining all of that, but also in terms of our reports, it's just a lot more efficient. So Sage Intacct has impacted credit control. To be fair, it's impacted sort of all across our finance function, but certainly through credit control it has. Previously, we were, because the employees didn't have access to Sage, they were entirely dependent on us sending them reports on a weekly basis, in some cases even daily. However, now, because firstly they've got access to the system, they're able to go into it and see live sets of data. So although we're still sending reports out periodically, if they've got a question of if someone's paid or not, they can just go directly into their accounts and they can check their debtor reports. There's a lot more functionality within those debtor reports also. We've had a few really good custom reports produced there as well. Previously, we had to manually key in purchase order numbers, which was coming through our Templar CRM system, whereas now it's being exported through that business analysis field and the use of custom fields. So again, a lot of time saving there, a lot more efficiency, and our managers are happy. So are we. So I think the purchasing side is probably where we've seen least sort of change, in all honesty, because such a big aspect of our change was due to our integration system. The integration system, Templar, really only sort of uses sales invoices being pushed through, whereas the purchase side of things is predominantly manual at this moment in time. So I wouldn't say the purchase invoice process has changed too much. The only difference I would say now is that we now do have additional custom fields in place. So, and specifically the dimension balance actually. So when we post an invoice, previously you would just assign a supplier code, whereas now we are able, on Sage Intacct, we're able to assign also a customer code that relates to it. We're also able to assign, for example, a task type, something specific to us, but like a work code or a job code almost. So I think there's a lot of benefit we've seen on that side. I would say the functionality which has really surprised me the most, it really has to be on our blues reporting, or our sort of gross profit reporting. Previously, we were on Excel. It was clunky, as I've mentioned. Now, because it's produced within the system, just the different amount of reports that we can produce through all of the features that we've discussed is really amazing. And it has surprised me quite a lot, actually. So through the use of customer groups and customer structures, we're able to now report on various different levels. So for example, if we wanted to produce a report specifically for our operations directors, we can drill into that detail. Or if we wanted to do it for a level below at reporting managers level, we can do. If we want to combine the two and have them shown almost as if it's a pivot, we can also do that. And again, all of this stuff was really things that we were doing on Excel, but through the use of stuff like pivot tables and VLOOKUPs. And I think one of the big advantages I've seen with Intacct thus far is it really eliminates the need for you to have to export to Excel and then use all of those tools. You can really just produce all of that within Intacct itself. So in terms of the day-to-day running and operations of our finance department, I think it has changed in the sense that I think we're a lot more efficient. So through the reduction in our chart of accounts, reports are far more quicker because we're not having to also carry across a lot of these reports to Excel. Again, there's a lot of time saving to be had there also. And also actually going back to the point that it's a cloud-based system. So I know this isn't something which is, new in the world of accounting, but it is new to us because we were on Sage 200. So we were sort of restrained in the sense that it had to be physically installed on a machine. And in the world of working from home and hybrid working, I think that in itself presented a challenge in that we would have to connect to sort of virtual machines that had Sage 200 physically installed. Whereas now, because it's all remote or on the cloud, it's just a lot more easier to get access to our data. And it's a lot quicker also because you're not having to connect through VPNs and stuff. I would say our relationship with ITES was professional, but also friendly at the same time. I honestly have nothing but positive superlatives to say in terms of ITES, both prior to working on this project, when it came to asking questions just in general to the support team. I genuinely think that they have a lot of knowledge, to the point where I remember, and this was quite funny, at one point I asked the guy that was helping me, are you an accountant? Because the level of knowledge that they have would make you think that they are, but actually they're just that well drilled into the system that it makes you believe they are. So no, honestly, I think that's just sort of testament to the level of support that we get, and specifically in terms of the project itself. I mean, I can name the guys that were on it, but they were amazing, honestly, throughout the process, particularly for someone who inherited this project. I think, let's be honest, when you're new, you don't particularly want to have projects in your first year, particularly the size of this. But I do have to say, working with ITIS, they've made that process a lot easier from the get-go, from sort of where we're currently at to, resuming that planning stage, to testing, to implementation. They really sort of walked us through that process. We had regular sort of calls, there was constant communication, and yeah, they really led the way, and I'm thankful for that. ITIS have most definitely met my expectations as an ITIS partner. Just leading on from what I was saying, in any query that I've had, at any point where I felt stuck, or as little as the query may seem, they've always been at the forefront and helping us, and they've been sort of efficient in their queries. They've dealt with it quickly and effectively. So yeah, absolutely, as an ITIS partner, I foresee us having a wonderful relationship going forward also. So in terms of the onboarding and learning the software, uh, naturally there were bits which were quite straightforward. As an accountant, we've used various systems. They do similar things, but just in different ways. So some things were straightforward, others probably weren't. I think the specific challenges that we probably had were really almost solely down to the integration with our CRM system. Things got very technical in terms of sort of coding and behind the scenes stuff, which I'm not familiar with, but I was thankful to the guys at ITIS and also Templar. They've sort of really led the way there, and they've resolved queries amongst each other. Um, So the communication throughout the project was constant. Um, we had regular catch-up calls every week at the start of the week, so that allowed us to sort of align our priorities. If there were any issues, that was a forum for us to discuss that. There were constant emails going back and forth. We had a shared drive where we had all of our implementation files and folders, and that was being kept up to date. So in that regard, I don't really know if there was much else that could have been done there. As I said, the ITIS were brilliant throughout the process. There was constant communication. Really, that's what you look for in terms of the sort of the key characteristics in terms of a partner, a Sage Intacct partner, I should say. I think the key sort of ones there are efficiency, good communication. And I think ITIS really do tick those boxes. So, there's no complaints on our side. So the project management process I found to be quite clear and concise. So we had folders and files which were shared sort of on the cloud, which all of us had access to. And on those files, it had very clear instructions on steps that we have to take, what we've done so far. All of the implementation files that had been completed were accessible. In terms of the migration files, they were also very clear. And we had a lot of concerns beforehand, thinking, how are we going to transfer our balances? We have to make sure, A, moving to a system, but B, making sure that, the historical balances are all there. And, from an audit perspective, are the accounts where they should be? And I think as soon as we saw the files, it quickly became evident that it would be quite a straightforward process, and it did prove to be. So in terms of the testing process, it follows quite a sort of strict structure, I would say. So initially we were given access to Sage University, and that really allows us to sort of get to grips with the system on our own, familiarize ourselves with the system, I would say. Once that was done, it was really then over to the likes of Jake at ITIS to sort of give us training sessions online. So we split them into 3 different sessions, I believe. So we had one which was specific to accounts payable, one which was accounts receivable, and then also one which was sort of cash management / general ledger. So through that, we were able to sort of split the sessions for, specific team members. And through the testing sessions, really, Jake did a wonderful job. He sort of talked us through the system. That was a bit of a concern of mine in terms of, because we were rolling out the system for the first time to various members of the team, because prior, throughout the project, it was really myself and Priya who were on board, but we've got a team of 8 others who had never seen the system of different abilities. So naturally, that was a concern, because as we know, people don't take to change too well. But I think, the likes of Jake really, helped us in that instance in the training. I think any queries or concerns that they had, he was able to answer in an efficient and effective manner. We used a system called ClickUp, where we were able to log our queries, and you can track everything. So it just meant that, we weren't duplicating sort of queries. Any responses that were being received were all being logged and tracked. And I think it really worked well. There have been a few instances where ITIS have gone above and beyond. I think back to one particular example, so not so much around the project. I can probably give an example there also, but specifically on support. So I had a very technical VAT query, and when VAT can get technical for any accountants out there, but when I spoke to the person that I did, I think we literally spent well over an hour going through it together, and I was really just appreciative of the time that he gave me. I think often when you're speaking to sort of support and stuff, of course there's external pressures or different sort of, things to get on with, but I didn't at any point feel rushed. And, as I said, we went through bit by bit every little thing that I could think of, as well as what he could think of. And, the call actually ended up well over an hour. So that's something which, as I said, I was very much appreciative of. So for anyone who's considering Sage Intacct, I would give a big thumbs up. I think for the right company, for the right size, for the right industry, I do honestly believe this is an amazing product. And not only is it cloud-based, but in particular, I would say someone who's got multiple sites. If you're struggling to get your reporting out for those various reports, I think really Sage Intacct excels on this front. Through the use of dimensions and custom fields, there's a lot of integration that can be had with your CRM system, a lot of features that can be unlocked. So from my experience, honestly, I truly do enjoy the system at the moment. It's meant that a lot of our processes have been sped up. We've found a lot of efficiencies. We're able to report on things that we previously weren't able to. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it. So for anyone who is considering ITAS as an implementation partner, I would say look no further, honestly. In terms of the key characteristics you're looking for a Sage Intacct partner, you want someone who has the technical expertise, the knowledge, who has good communication, is efficient. ITAS ticks all of those boxes. In all of my experiences working with ITAS, whether it be a support query or a project query, they've been able to resolve everything and in a timely manner. And I think that's really crucial, because we have our own pressures. particularly around testing, where in an ideal world we'd be able to devote multiple hours to testing. The reality is other tasks come into play, and it often sort of goes on the back burners. I think that's where ITIS has really helped sort of realign our focus on certain things. So yeah, it's all positive, honestly, and I would definitely recommend ITIS as a provider or a partner.